Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and thank you so much for watching. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I made this ballerina themed cake. So let's get right into it. I'm starting out with two 6-inch cakes that I've cut in half, and I'm going to be filling those with some Swiss meringue buttercream. I'm using my small offset spatula to make sure my buttercream stays nice and level, and once my cake is stacked up, I'm going to apply a thin layer of my buttercream all around the outside for a crumb coat. Once my cake is covered, I'm going to pop that in the fridge for about 25 minutes to set up. When you can put your finger on the buttercream and none of it comes off, it's ready for the final ice. So I'm applying a thick layer of buttercream all over my cake, and then using my small offset spatula, I'm going to smooth out the buttercream on the top, making sure it stays flat and even. And then with my bunch scraper, I'm going to go along the sides to just smooth those out. And all that buttercream that accumulated on the top of my cake, I'm just going to pull that into the center using my spatula, keeping it nice and flat just to ensure that I'm not going to mess up the evenness of my cake. That's going back in the fridge to chill, and then I'm going to start on my fondant. Even though the bottom layer of my cake is going to be covered in Ruffles, I am going to still cover it in a very thin layer of white fondant because I don't want any of that buttercream to peek out through my Ruffles. I'm rolling my fondant out really thin on my cornstarch surface, and then I'm going to pick that up with my fondant roller and drape it over my chilled cake. And then just using my fondant smoother in my hands, I'm going to push all the air out from the top of that cake and then just move down, pulling out the pleats and the seams and just smoothing down until I reach the bottom. I went over the whole thing one more time with my fondant smoother, and then for the excess at the bottom, I grabbed my pizza cutter and just trimmed that away. I do apologize if some of the lighting is off in this video. We're having some really bad forest fires in BC, so the sky is all cloudy and smoky and the sun's all orange. So unfortunately I couldn't really do anything about it, but hopefully it's not too bad. My cake is 2 tiers, so I have another 4-inch tier that I iced and covered in fondant the exact same way as I did my first one. So I need to add some support before I stack them together. I have some straws here that I'm spacing out evenly, and then using some scissors, I'm just cutting those so that they're flush to the cake. I spread a little bit of buttercream on top to help my top tier adhere, and I just popped that on and centered it. To create the bodice for my ballerina cake, I'm rolling out some darker pink fondant, and I have this heart cutter, and I'm just pressing in the very top of that, not the whole thing. I just want to get the shapes as like an outline. I grabbed my X-Acto knife and just recut out the top, and then instead of tapering it in really sharply like you would with the heart, I just kind of widened that and lengthened it. And then I just trimmed the bottom to size so that when I put it on the top tier, it would just cover it from top to bottom. I placed that onto a piece of parchment paper to firm up a bit, and I rolled out some darker pink fondant, cut out 2 strips, and then draped that over either side to create like the boning of the bodice look, I guess. With some really thin strips of white fondant, I zigzagged that in the middle for the laces. cut out a thicker strip of white fondant, and with my foam pad and my fondant tool, I'm just thinning out the end of that so the top is really ruffly, and then I'm going to place that on the top of my bodice. I attached that using some water, and then I just trimmed away the sides. I just want it to be on the very top. I don't really want it to be running down the sides at all. So this is what I ended up with, and then I placed that on my cake. I just used some water to attach it. It took me a little while to fiddle with it. Some of the laces kind of fell off when I was putting it on, but it just came back together, so don't worry about it. And then it looked like this. To create my ruffles, I'm rolling out some light pink fondant, and then using my cutter, I am cutting out a bunch of circles. This took a really long time, and I found that the best way to do this was just to do it in batches instead of trying to cut out all these circles at once, because they will dry out. So if you work in small batches, it does make it easier for you to keep the fondant pliable so it doesn't crack. To thin out my ruffles, I grabbed my foam pad and my balling tool, and then for each one of my circles, I ran the balling tool over the entire thing, and then when I got to the edge, I kept the balling tool half on the pad and half on the circle and just ran it over and over again, and you can see it naturally creates that nice ruffle look. I folded each one, alternating between folding them like right in half or curled around or in four, pinching everything into the center. You just want to create a bit of a variance so when you attach them, they don't all look exactly the same. I attached each one to my cake using a little bit of water and just started on the bottom and worked my way around. I kept them quite close together because I wanted it to look super ruffly. You could space them out a bit more, but I just like the way this looked. It is super time consuming. I thought my fingers were gonna fall off by the end of this, but I thought the payoff was worth it. This is what it looked like when I had all my ruffles on the cake. You can see I just brought it up to the very top of the cake. I didn't go over it all. You could if you like the way that looked, but this was fine for me. And then for the edge of my bottom tier, I just attached some little sugar pearls all the way around. To create my ballet shoe toppers, I rolled out some dark pink fondant, and I have this template that I use, and I will link it below. I just cut out these two pieces using my X-Acto knife. Then I draped the U-shaped piece of fondant over my foot outline, and I smoothed that down in the front. I picked up the pieces and wrapped them around the side and then just brought them together in the back, and I used some water just to run over the edges to secure everything and make sure it stuck together. I just used my fingers to kind of puff up the front bit so it looked like a shoe, it wasn't laying flat. But if you find that it's not staying, you can just tuck a little piece of cotton or paper towel in there and let it dry completely, and when you pull it out, it should stay in place. For the little ribbons on the front of my ballet shoes, I rolled out more of my pink fondant in the same color. I cut out these strips and then just kind of trimmed them down to size. I brought each end into the middle, and then with another little strip of fondant, I just draped that over the center and pinched it at the back. To cover the seam in the back of my shoe, I cut out another piece of pink fondant and just pinched that over the back so it created like a loop. My shoes are going to be standing up on my cake, so to help them stay in place, I have another strip of pink fondant with a skewer, and I'm going to wet the back of that strip with some water, center my skewer so that the excess is coming out where the tip of the ballet shoe is, and then I just pressed my piece of fondant over top of that, and I'm going to let that dry completely before I try to place it on, just to make sure the skewer isn't going to wiggle loose. The The last thing I did was place my shoes on top. I was really careful and just placed them. I liked the way it looked when they were kind of overlapping. You could do whatever you wanted. And then with some long pink strips of fondant, I just put them on either side for the laces and just let them kind of drape down. And this was the final look, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe for new videos every week. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next one.